Yes, people, welcome back to Albert JTV on this Thursday evening match preview. It's been a while, but before we get into it, let's smash the intro. Footballing community, you should know what to do by now. Like, share, and subscribe. Welcome back to Albert JTV. A social media platform. Know what you're talking about, and what I mean by that is goals. ESR and Saka have done well. They've done okay. They've done well. And there you have it, people. Surround intro into a Thursday night live match preview at Albert JTV's household. As I like to call it, the Southeast London red carpet, people. If you know, you know. People, as I like to say, obligatories, obliterate the like button and share and retweet on Facebook and on the Twitter feed and everything else. But yeah, but it's been a while since I've done a match preview actually. But I've got fantastic, esteemed Midlands guest with me. Legend, the Asprey, I call him. I don't even call him Dave, I call him the Asprey. Dave.
Yeah, I suppose, Albert, I'm Asprey JTV, aren't I? That's like me nicking your ID there, Albert. I'm so sorry, mate.
No worries. No, it's a pleasure to get you on, man. I've thought of you straight. I thought, you know what, I've got to get the legend Dave on, man. But Dave, pleasure to have you on, mate.
Thank you very much, Albert. It's lovely to be here. And we're 48 hours, around about just over 48 hours away from what is going to be, I believe, a really fantastic prospect at the City Ground on Saturday tea time, mate. So some imponderables, so not so ponderables, and then we'll see where it takes us. And depending on the result, I'll either have a quiet grin or I'll be gracious in defeat. What I mean? So
I'm a little bit more confident, Dave, just because it's not a cup game. When it's a cup game, we don't seem to turn up.
yeah. It's been a bit. The City Ground's been a bit of an Arsenal FA Cup graveyard, hasn't it, recently?
Yeah.
So, but I've a feeling that Mr. Arteta and his wounded lads will want to lay that bogey on Saturday. So, expecting a very tough encounter.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good game, man. Let me give a shout out to my man. We just talked about him off screen. Door on top man. Got the legend Dave here. Keep doing amazing work on your channel, my friend. Great show.
Brilliant, mate. And he's fantastic.
Casey, love Casey, man. That guy, man, amazing.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
But Dave, before we get into it, we obviously spoke a little bit off in the live stream. I just want to talk about a couple of things yesterday because obviously there's loads of football on at this time, and there was a small game last night in the the semi-final. Dave, listen, I've got to be honest, mate. I was impressed with City in the first leg, particularly the second half.
Yeah.
I mean, yesterday, the way they started that game, they took Real Madrid completely out of any type of comfort zone. What did you make of that game, mate? Unbelievable.
It was, I think it was the passing of a baton. Real Madrid have been serial winners in this competition, and I think we're looking at probably if, and it's still a big if, they have to get past Inter Milan. We cannot. I think Pep Guardiola won't be dismissing Inter Milan. Inter Milan are there on merit. They've come through a tough run to get there. They're a great club in their own right. But the way City played last night, you feel that if they do overcome Inter Milan, we're looking at probably the team that is going to reign supreme for the next few years. I thought they were. The thing is, Albert, I don't have BT, so last night, without preempting what we're going to talk about later, I was at Middlesbrough Coventry, but I watched the highlights later on just before I went to bed. Being a night owl, I stay up quite late, Albert, and so I watched the highlights, and I think there was the Alaba free kick and Cruz at the bar. That apart, it was as one-sided a game as you could possibly wish to see, based on the 8 or 9 minutes that I watched. And they're a great team. I actually think, Albert, they're the best team I've ever seen. I mean, I'm 59, and I've seen a lot of football teams in my time, but I don't think I've seen a team as good as City, and I based that on our 6-0 defeat at the Etihad back in August, where our lads, they just come up from the Championship. They're learning in the hardest footballing classroom there is, the Premier League, and we go to the Etihad, and we kind of think we're in for it, and then we got more than we bargained for because City played walking football and won 6-0, while Forest were chasing around like sort of rabbits trying to get off a road, trying to get out of the headlights, and City were just sublime. They can win in all kinds of ways. They can take Haaland out and put Julian Alvarez in. They won a title last year without a recognised centre forward. They played with the false nine. They've added this phenomenon, this freakish guy up front, and I think they're a great team, and I want them to win it to cement that idea of them being a great team and of being the best in the world, because I think they are. And I think, if you take that, Real Madrid have won this thing 14 times, and there have been so many great iterations of Real Madrid Football Club. And I talked with Potsy last night, and I kind of had this horrible sneaky feeling that like City would play well, but the Real Madrid would nick a goal through Benzema or somebody like that, and you'd be like, City would be like, oh God, we've got to go again next year, because it is the one monkey on City's back. They have that heritage here in England of winning the Premier League so often, and Carabao Cups and FA Cups and all this kind of stuff. So we know within this country, but I want City to stamp their mark all over Europe. They had their chance 2 years ago and they fluffed it. I think Pep overthought it that night, 100%. And they missed a chance, and Chelsea beat them 2 years ago. I think that is a driving force, because Pep and they will not want that to happen again. But they were just sublime. They see things on a football pitch that other teams don't see. And I think, in terms of the context for Arsenal to get so close to this juggernaut, if you like, says that Arsenal are getting lots of stick. People saying, oh, they weren't able to deal with it.
I know too well.
That awful word that I'm not going to mention. I'm fed up of it. But for Arsenal to push a team that dominant as far as they have in the season and as close as they have, I think that says, Arsenal are definitely ahead of the schedule I would have had in mind for them. But City were wonderful, and dear old Ancelotti. I mean, he's a fantastic coach. He's a great football man, Ancelotti. He had that look on his face when he came over and shook Pep's hand at the end, and he went, he looked at Pep and he went, old lad, I think you were a bit too good for us tonight. And City were sublime, and Bernardo was fantastic. The thing is, Albert, they've got all the parts move together, and then you take a part out and you add a new part, or whatever. You can take Jack out and put Phil in. You can take Bernardo, you put Bernardo in and live Riyad out. You can put Rico Lewis in and take somebody else. Young Cole Palmer can come in. The boys at the back there, I don't think Nathan Ake, who's been outstanding this season, didn't play last night. So you got Manuel Akanji. Good. Kyle, I believe, is I actually think Kyle, and I might be, and I'll probably get some pelts, but I think Kyle's the best right back in the world. He's certainly the best defender at covering back.
Yeah, his pace is unreal.
Absolutely. So they're a great team. The worry for everybody else is that where's it going to end? You know what I mean? You look in this country. You can see them like they're mathematically Arsenal could still catch them, but it's highly unlikely.
Yeah, it's done.
And you can see that
done, mate.
Yeah, and I think most people think it's done. And you can, so they'll wrap it up this season. Then you can think, well, who's going to challenge them next season? Unless somebody spends gigantic amounts of money or happens on some magical formula, they are going to be the team to beat, I think, for a few years. I think, it won't go on endlessly.
Yeah,
there will come a point where
either because
where Pep decides, tell you what, I've done this now. There's no more worlds to conquer. Even like Alexander the Great, he wept salt tears because there were no more worlds to conquer. And this will be Pep, and he'll say, right, I want to spend time with my family, be with my kids, whatever. And then somebody else will come in, and City then at that point, as United found in the past, as Nottingham Forest found when the Great One finished, those are big shoes to fill. So But I just think in the immediate, in the short term, they're going to be dominant. And I mean, there'll be some people who like begrudge them, but I just think they're a great football team, and we should cherish them while we've got them, like we did Barcelona previously, and then we did, Milan in the 90s. Going back, for me, when I was a kid, it was Ajax. They were like, Cruyff was my favourite footballer at the time. So when you get these great teams that are kind of like dynasties, I think you have to cherish them, because they're moments in time.
Yeah,
but they were wonderful, Albert. Absolutely superb. I thought to do what they did to that standard of opposition.
That's the thing. Yeah, it's because it's Madrid. It's not even like it's not some also ran team. They did tap to 40-time winners.
And the thing is, Albert, and I'm going to be really, really parochial now. We drew with them at the City Ground. And we scored. And I'll tell you what, Albert, and I've been banging on, and people say, "Oh, Dave, shush." That goal that Forest scored against City at the City Ground. I think we had something like 4% possession in that game. It was like City were utterly. It was almost like the ball was magnetized to a sky blue boot, right? But we scored a goal in that game where all 11 of our boys had a touch of the ball from Keylor Navas right to Chris Wood. It was 19 passes. City never touched it. And it was like, wow. It was like City being citied, if you like. So to then see them do what they did to Real Madrid, I'm kind of thinking, well, you didn't beat Nottingham Forest, did you? But it's just something, Albert, I cling to.
Yes, David, you have to cling on to it, man. Don't worry, mate.
Oh, mate, these little crumbs of comfort, Albert. You know what I mean?
I didn't feel like that after we played them at the Etihad, mate. Don't worry about that. But Dave, one thing I want to speak to you about quickly before we talk about obviously our beloved clubs is playoff final. We will have either Coventry City or Luton Town in the Premier League. It's incredible, mate. Like I said, I'm old enough to remember life before the Premier League and old First Division One. I saw your tweet, Brian Kilclyde, Mickey Ginn.
Brian Steen, Emeka Nwajiobi, Ricky Hill. Both clubs have had great players. Yeah.
So it's going to be amazing, Dave, man. I've got to be honest. Luton not too long ago were not even a Football League side.
I know.
Coventry have had so much issues with the stadium and being homeless effectively. So to get a playoff final, David's incredible. What's your thoughts, mate?
It's two fairy tales colliding, Albert. Luton Town 8 years ago, I think, were a non-league club.
Yeah.
And huge credit to the people who look after, the custodians of Luton Town Football Club. They've done wonderful things to get from where they were to where they are. It's truly astonishing. And also, bless it, Kenilworth Road hasn't changed at all. It's still Kenilworth Road.
It's mad to think,
I believe you have to go through you have to knock on somebody's door, to be allowed up the garden to get into the away end. What Luton have done is astonishing, but in their own way, the Coventry City story is just as kind of inspiring, if you like.
Yeah, 100%.
Because they at the start of the Premier League, they were in the Premier League for until something like 9 years or 10 years.
Yeah.
And then they had a really spectacular fall from grace, if you like. So they went to League Two. They came back up through the League Two playoffs. I remember they beat Notts County, another club actually who are back on the rise. Well done to Notts County. Well done to Notts County. And Wrexham as well. I remember they beat Notts County in a League Two playoff. They then made it up into League One. They came up from League One. They were slightly fortunate in that League One season was truncated by pandemic.
Yeah.
But if they were at the top of the table after 30 odd games as they were, then tables don't lie, I would say. And I just think they've got a wonderful manager in Mark Robins. He's old school. Yeah, Mark Robins he's old school. He played for Sir Alex.
Yeah.
He's been through a number of clubs. He's been at Huddersfield. He's been at Barnsley. Mark has earned his dues. He's a real good, proper football man. He's very measured. Again, a bit like our own Steve.
Yeah.
You know, Mark's a great reader of football. I think he's, you know, a good sort of big brother father figure to what is a very young Coventry side. You know, and a side that's hard working. Yeah, Gyökeres is a focal point. He's a fantastic player.
Yeah.
You know, there's Premier League clubs that are coveting him.
Slipping already, yeah. 100%.
Yeah, Gustavo Hamer has been a fantastic signing. They were low budget, I think, either last season or the season before, and brought him in. They kind of extended what they wanted to pay to bring him in. That's proved in the fullness of time to be a very sensible signing. Ben Wilson is a terrific goalkeeper.
Yeah.
You know, McFad's in at the back. He's your old school. He's kind of like your Tom Lockyer and your Sonny Bradley at Luton.
Hey, I have to give a shout out to obviously one of our Arsenal loanees who plays right back for Coventry in Brook Norton Cuffy. So
yes.
Him, yeah.
I didn't see the first leg because I was at Stamford Bridge on Saturday, but Norton Cuffy really impressed me last night.
Good game, tight game.
Yeah,
first leg,
he got a little bit of the Jed Spence about him from Jed played for us last year. Very kind of sort of similar. But what I like about Coventry and I like about Luton is that there are no stars in these teams, but these are lads who are overachieving and they're going beyond what people would imagine. So I mean, like Luton, Adebayo, you know, Carlton Morris, who was at Barnsley previously. It's the thing is, it's a wonderful story, and it's going to be a great game at Wembley. I think it's a clash. I think it's a clash of styles. I think Coventry are very front foot and play some slick football in and off and around Gyökeres as a focal point. I think Luton are pretty physical. I thought the other night, that's not to decry what they've done. I just felt I thought Sunderland's kids, having sneaked in sixth, Albert, were very dangerous. You know, Mowbray's an old fox. But I thought Sunderland were made to look quite small and quite young by Luton the other night.
Yeah.
And so I think Luton, I think, will be the more physical of the two. But Coventry, if they allow Coventry into a rhythm early on in that game, Borough couldn't stem Coventry's rhythm last night. And the longer, once Hamer had put Coventry in front,
Coventry head.
Yeah, I really could not see where Borough's response. They tried hard, but it just felt like it was
the thing with Borough, and I thought this, but I did think sort of when the playoffs was formed and who was going to play, I thought, you know what, for the way the season's gone, I did think it would be a Middlesbrough Luton final, but I thought with Middlesbrough, I think they spent so long them and Luton chasing Sheffield United. They didn't go into them playoffs in very good form, mate, and they didn't, and I think it showed.
Yes. I think that's the point. I think with Borough, I think they'll be there and thereabouts again because I've got a great amount of respect for Michael Carrick. I think as a rookie manager, he's done a fantastic job. I mean, really, you know, when he got the Borough job, I kind of thought, if they're mid-table respectability for Michael and for Borough, I think that would be a stepping stone in the right direction from where they were previously. But you know, he's got to the playoffs. And generally, you know, I mean, Luton were beaten in the playoffs last year. They've come back. Prior to being promoted to the Premier League, Brentford were playoffs a couple of years. You know, teams kind of, a lot of the time, they're teams who've been to the playoffs and they kind of come back. Villa did it. Brighton did it. I mean, the outlier are us. We came from nowhere, having had no playoffs for like 10 years, and we came from nowhere to be in it last year. And thankfully, we took our chance. The only thing I would say is, Albert, based on my experience of Forest coming through the playoffs last year and to where we are now, exactly almost a year on. Yesterday was the year anniversary of us beating Sheffield United in the second leg at City Ground to make it to Wembley, right?
Yes.
Having gone through that as a Forest fan and then into the Premier League, and this sounds awful and it's slightly cynical and it's a slightly scarred take on Burnley, Sheffield United, and then whichever of Luton or Coventry makes it up. My first thought was, well done, lads. Welcome to your relegation dogfight next season. Because somebody said to me, when did you start thinking that Forest were in a relegation dogfight? And I said, about 10 minutes after we won at Wembley. Yeah. Everybody's celebrating, and I'm thinking, right, our battle to stay in this division now.
Yeah, so
I mean, Burnley have played fantastic football this year. Vincent's done an amazing job. I thought Burnley would struggle to come back, given that they had financial issues. You know, Vincent was untried at management level in this country. they've played phenomenal football at Burnley. You know, they've kind of like, whoa, blimey, I never expected that. They've been good. Blades have been solid. But yeah, they had. I mean, they were close in the playoffs last year. I mean, they against us in that second leg. I mean, we won 2-1 at Bramall Lane, and we were good for that. In fact, we should have really finished the tie off at Bramall Lane last year. Came back to the City Ground. We took the lead through Brennan, but for the second half and most of extra time, Sheffield United were by far the better team. You know, so you kind of thought that, you know, it's all about how you respond. But Blades have come back from that well. Heckingbottom's done a good job, but the trouble is I believe Blades have got some financial issues that they need to deal with. But and Luton and Coventry. I mean, the thing is, for Luton, whichever one of them wins it, I mean, it's going to bring problems. Whoever wins it, if you lose it, you're going, oh God, we've got to go back to the Championship and start that slog again. And the Championship, just in terms of the repetition of games and the short time periods, you know, you really need to be organised, you know, to deal with that. So one of them is going to have to deal with that, and the other one is going to have to deal with a very, very short preparation time.
Yeah,
and you know, because like the season will finish I think it's May the 28th or 29th that they play that final, and then they've literally got 2 months or 2 months and a week before the hardest league in the world starts, and they have to be as near to being on point as they can make it. And it's going to be, it's an up for all three of them, whichever, you know, those two and whichever of Coventry, Luton, they have got a mountain to climb. I mean, where I do think they're in, Luton and Coventry are in a better spot at the moment than Forest were last year, is much of Forest's success was based on our five loans: Davis, Garner, Spence, Zinkernagel.
Yeah.
I always miss one name out. There was another one I can't. Lowe. Max Lowe, and we knew that they were going, so Forest had to kind of overhaul. Now I think Luton or Coventry, were they to come up, whichever one it is, I don't think they'd be too far away from the side they want. They would tweak and add bits here and there. Forest had to go whole hog, and that got forgotten, Albert, by the media heads. You know, Nottingham Forest are throwing their weight about, thinking they're better than they are. It wasn't the case at all. Steve Cooper would not have allowed that. That's not Steve Cooper's way of doing things. So I think that Luton or Coventry will have already got the nucleus or the skeleton of a side in place, and I think they won't have to run as quickly as Forest did to have to catch up with the rest. But that day, that game at Wembley is going to be a cracker, and it, like you say, it brings back memories. Yeah, brings back memories of really good Luton teams of the past. You know, Brian Steen, Brian Horton, David Moss, Ricky Hill, Mitchell Thomas,
good old Mick Harford.
Oh, what a player! I love Mick Harford, Mark Pembridge, and then for Coventry, Mickey Ginn. You've got Cyril Regis, you've got Dave Bennett, Kill Klein, Lloyd McGrath. You know, I remember the Coventry beating. And you'll like this, Albert. Coventry beating Tottenham in the 1987 Cup final.
Yeah,
and
we've got Holly in the chat as a Tottenham fan, which wasn't alive there, but Holly just to remind you, you know, your dad will tell you anyway.
So yeah, and I think the Coventry Tottenham final is one of the greatest cup finals I've ever seen. I mean, either side could have won it. It was Clive Allen scored, I think, in the first minute.
Yeah,
with from a waddle cross. I think that was this year. Allen scored 49 or 50 goals, and then Coventry came back and. I think the winner went in off Keith Houchin scored a fantastic diving header. Poor old Gary Mabbott deflected into his own net for Coventry's winner, and it was a fantastic final. You know, in my view, the last of the truly great cup finals. Although you could say that about Everton, Liverpool, 1989. You know, but it's whichever one of them gets there will have deserved it, because the Championship is
brutal.
The quality isn't. There is a gulf in quality
between
what we're in now and what we were in last year. We found that, and they will find that. But the Championship is a minefield that has to be negotiated very, very carefully, and you have to be rugged and you have to be resilient. Whichever one goes up will have definitely earned it, Albert. You know.
Yeah, 100%. But no, I think for Arsenal fans, sort of speaking to a couple of Arsenal fans in group chats, I think in terms of ticket allocation, they might just want Coventry to come up. Maybe I'm just put it out there.
Well, do you know what, Albert? That's a really good point you make, because obviously we were in the Championship last year and we played Luton. I think it was on Good Friday or something, and it was anything but a Good Friday because Luton won 1-0. We had what we thought was a perfectly valid goal ruled out, and I went to most of the away games. I think I went to 18 out of the 23 away games last year, missed 5. And Luton was one that I couldn't get a ticket. It was the only one I couldn't get a ticket for, right? And the Forest website said that the tickets for Luton would go on sale at like 10 o'clock one morning, and the allocation was, I think, either 1,000 or 1,100, not massive.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah,
and those tickets somehow found themselves onto the Forest website way before 10 o'clock. So I remember getting up that morning thinking, right, I'm going to try and get myself a ticket. No chance, absolutely no chance of getting it. So I mean, the only issue Luton have got that, I mean, Coventry look like they've sorted out their ground issues at the Rico, and that's a stadium that's perfectly fine for the Premier League. Perfectly fine for the Premier League. But Luton are going to have to do as Forest did last year. Once Forest had come through Wembley, knowing they were going in the Premier League, a hell of a lot of work in a very short space of time was carried out at the City Ground to make it ready for the Premier League. And so Luton, I mean, you know, Kenilworth Road has got character. It's a fantastic old-fashioned. I always kind of think those boxes on the far side, they look like a row of shops. Do you know what I mean? Right where the duggers are. But they're going to have to do a lot of work to make it Premier League ready. So if it is Luton, then it's going to cost them a lot of money, I think. But they won't care because, you know, for a club like them to have been non-league 8 years ago and now be Premier League. Similarly, Coventry were League 2. Now they could be Premier League. I mean, they're incredible stories, both of them, really. And whoever wins it, well done to them, you know.
No, fair play. But no, let's get to obviously a big game on Sunday. So yes, Nottingham Forest versus Arsenal. So Arsenal come into this game off the back of I was there at the Brighton game last week. Wow, what a second
My
half.
condolences, Albert.
Yeah, it felt like that after the game, believe me. But, yeah, fair play to Brighton. But yeah, it's sort of coming into this game. I think, I don't know how you feel, Dave, but sort of it's a two-part question. That would you prefer to have played Arsenal off the back of them beating Brighton, or the way it's gone? And also, what did you make? What did you make of actually when you appointed Steve Cooper, and how has he done since he's been there?
Well, to take the first part of that, Albert, I would have preferred to be facing Arsenal off the back of Arsenal beating Brighton.
Yes, I thought so.
My view is, I think taking this game, I think the nub, the kernel of this game, is Arsenal's mindset. The game is all about Arsenal's mindset and how they have gone from what happened on Sunday afternoon to now. And Jenny's right, actually. Bless. Can't shut up, sorry, no. And I just think I think what we're going to get a wounded animal. That's what I think we're going to get.
Pressure's off, Dave. Pressure's off.
And you know what, Albert? And I came up with this fancy statement the other night when I was talking to Kevin Dorr and Malcolm, and I've used it with Potsy as well, and I'm quite proud of it. There's nothing like a heavy home defeat to focus collective and individual minds.
Well said.
Now, Brighton and Hove Albion were beaten 5-1 at home by Everton, of all people. I think it's the most astonishing result anywhere in the world this year. And actually, Albert, that is the result that's really complicated more than ever the relegation picture. Because if Brighton had beaten Everton, then Forest probably would be, pretty close now. We're not, as it is. So, Brighton then had their hurt against Everton. De Zerbi said, "You're going to let that happen again?" No. And Brighton were magnificent. Brighton were truly magnificent, especially second half. They were magnificent.
Yeah, brilliant. They were.
Played wonderful football. Now, Arsenal will be thinking I think they've been thinking a number of things. Like Mikel Arteta was saying, you were outplayed on Sunday. Our stadium emptied far too quickly because people in the stands let you know what they think.
100%.
are you going to allow that to happen again? Also, we went there in the FA Cup last year to the City Ground, and I was filmed on the Arsenal documentary, losing my mind in the changing room afterwards. He came into the City Ground changing room, Mikel did, and there were some expletives, there was some profanity. Mr. Arteta displayed a greater grasp of English swear words than you'd imagine a Spanish guy to have. And I remember he came in, he absolutely leathered them, walked straight out. All the Arsenal boys, Granit Xhaka obviously being the main man at the time, they all looked at each other and nobody knew what to say. They won't want that again at the City Ground.
No.
And they won't want what happened against Brighton.
And it's our last game. It's our last away game of the season.
It's your last away game of the season. Yes. A lot of people will be travelling up from London, paying a lot of money, and they'll want a show. And I think, had Arsenal beaten Brighton, I think there'd be more chance of Forest catching them off guard. As it is now, Arsenal are going to be kind of looking around, looking over the shoulder, like, who's coming for us? You know what I mean? And Arsenal are going to be ready for it. The only thing I would say with it is, I think the imponderable, Albert, is Arsenal's mindset. Now, Kev, the other night, Kev's been there and he's seen it, he's done it. He's greater knowledge than me. I'm just a supporter. I'm not, I played some football, but not to that level like Kev is. Kev's got to that exalted level. Yeah. And he said, I said to him, do you think, will it have left a scar or a mark on Arsenal Sunday afternoon? And he went, maybe, but when you play for a club like that, with a support that fanatical and that big and the size of the club, you have to respond in any game of football. And I think Forest have got to be very wary about if the Arsenal that I'm predicting that Wounded Animal will show the world, will show them that left our stadium early last week, Forest are in for a monumental task. If though Arsenal come and there's any residual deflation from that defeat, Forest might spot it. But if Forest themselves don't spot it, the 27,000 in the City Ground, which is going to be ferocious, they'll spot it. And if there's any sense of a weakness in Arsenal psychologically, the City Ground is one of the worst places at the moment Arsenal could go. I agree. If I was saying to Arsenal, if there's one ground you could go to this week and not worry about what the crowd, go to Chelsea. I went there last week. It's the quietest ground I've been to in years. Awful, Albert. It was like there were 3,000 of us in there, and there were 35,000 Blues in there, and there was more noise from us 3,000 than there was from these others. They all just sat there and did very little.
Dave, I'll be honest, mate. I'm not surprised with what I've seen in Chelsea when they came to our ground. My word, that's very poor.
And ours, Albert. They're. I mean, without getting into Chelsea, they're a club with a lot of stuff to deal with. But I think the Pochettino thing. We think Steve thinks, the team thinks, we'll never have a better opportunity of beating Chelsea at Stamford Bridge than the one we had on Saturday, because. If we survive and we go there next year and it'll be Pochettino, it'll be much harder, and they'll probably be too good for us. But this weekend, the City Ground itself, as it has been throughout most of this season, is a key weapon for Forest. We've taken 27 of our 34 points there. It's a cauldron. I mean, what we've done with it, Albert, which we didn't do for so long when we were in the Championship, we've made it a real weapon. In the Championship days, when we were a backwater, teams would come to the City Ground and they'd be lifted by, wow, this is the home of former European champions. Let's enjoy ourselves. Now people don't like coming there. I mean, Liverpool came there and were poor.
Lost.
City came, lost. City came and were eventually frustrated. Chelsea were poor. I mean, the teams who've done best at the City Ground this year are Bournemouth and Fulham. They came, we were leading in both, and they beat us. You know what I mean? So if there's any sort of distraction in Arsenal's minds on Saturday, the City Ground is the last place you want to be. Forest, and I'm saying this probably for the first time in the season, I think Forest are pretty rock solid psychologically. I think we're close now to Albert, to our best 11. Yeah. I think We've got fantastic team spirit. All our boys get on great. The dressing room is united. They are united behind the manager. The fan base, there'll always be pockets, but the vast majority united behind the manager. And again, apart from these little pockets, which you get in every club because it's such a huge congregation of people that support a football club, there are always going to be people saying, I don't want this manager, or I don't want that manager. And that's fine.
Dave, you don't need to tell me as an Arsenal fan, mate. Listen, trust me.
But by and large, Albert, and I'm not sure this has been the case with some of those around us in the relegation battle, nobody's turned on Steve Cooper. The Forest fan base have stuck with their guy. The ownership have been very patient and very loyal. We thought he might be gone after Leicester early in the season when we lost 4-0. So he was in a precarious position. I thought he might go after the Leeds defeat, where he walked off at the end, Steve did, and there was a bit of a forlorn wave to the fans. It looked like, to me, it looked like a goodbye. But we've stuck with him. And we're the only ones of the bottom 5 who've stuck with their guy all season. Now, Leeds have had 3. Southampton have had 3, Everton have had 2, Leicester have had 2, and it's just a sense.
Dave, I was just looking at the league table, and like even from where you are down, going to the bottom where Southampton relegated, you've won more games than anybody else. I mean, Everton only won 1 in the last 5. I think Leicester won 1 in the last 5, but they're just not. They can't win games. That when you beat Southampton, that was massive.
Oh, mate! I tell you what, Albert. I
went through the ringer.
I came out of that ground feeling. I felt like all the girls do when they give birth. You know what I mean? It's like as a bloke, Albert, I'd love to know what it's like to give birth. So that when the girls say, "Oh, you don't know what it's like to give birth,"
I wouldn't.
But I remember coming out that. I remember coming out that ground that night, Albert, and I felt like I had triplets, mate. It was an unbelievable game, and you know, and credit to Southampton because they played some good football. You know, James Ward-Prowse is a fabulous player. He's going to be. Everybody's going to want James, right? Kyle Walker-Peters is a good player. You know, Lianco played well. Saints actually, they dominated possession. Most of that game, Saints didn't look like a team that was like completely bereft of ideas or hope, and they played some good stuff. But winning it, as you say, Albert, was massive, absolutely massive. And so we've taken 7 from the last 12. Prior to that, we'd lost 11 on the bounce. I tell you when it started, Albert, our little upturn and our kind of settling down, if you like. We went away to Anfield. We all expected a good hiding, and we didn't get one.
That was tight.
Liverpool won. Liverpool won. But we, again, off not very much possession, we created a lot of problems for Liverpool. We equalised twice. They then scored a third. Then we hit the bar, and Taiwo had an overhead, a bicycle kick just over the bar. And we came out thinking, well, we'd gone there expecting the worst. Yeah. And we all came out going, well, yeah, okay, we've lost. But blimey, if they can show that amount of fight, then you never know, maybe. And then what we did, we then went into the Brighton game, you know, and we beat Brighton 3-1. And for the first half, Brighton we missed a penalty, and then Brighton were quite mesmerising because they kept the ball. We couldn't get it off them. A little bit like Sunday afternoon. Yeah. But we managed to find a way to win. Then we went to Brentford, and for 80 minutes, solid as you like. Look, if we could have managed, Albert, if we could have managed that game,
you would have. Yeah.
We would if we'd have won that game as we should have done based on our first 80 minutes, then the conversation us two are having
would be very different. 100%.
Very different. Yeah. So. And then after the Brentford pain, and it was painful. That was a. I was quiet for ages. About to quote my good friend Malcolm Owen, one of my best mates, he said, "You were quiet for 2 minutes. It must have really hurt you." You know what I mean? So walking out Brentford, and then I
was a lot more quiet than that on Sunday.
I can imagine. I can imagine for Arsenal fans that wasn't much fun. But as I say, we've taken 7 from the last 12. Yeah, and I think we look, and I'm not disrespecting the other 4, you know, well, Leeds and Everton in particular, and Leicester. I just think that we look happier, more unified, and more everybody all on the same hymn sheet than Leeds. Yeah, Leicester in particular. I think Leicester's problem is that they never in a million years foresaw this. You know, they've won the league, they've won the FA Cup, they've been to Champions League semi-final, they went to a European semi-final last year.
Last season, crazy.
Yeah, you know, and the thing is for them, Albert, I think they're having a real struggle to come to terms with where they are. Now, this is where Forest, knowing they were in a relegation dogfight from the moment they won at Wembley, actually helps. Forest have been in that. Yeah. We're up against it. We want 17th. They've been at it from the get-go. Leeds sneaked in last year by winning at Brentford on the last day of the season. But I think they thought that they would then kick on from that. So they were Everton. I mean, you know, the size of that club. The worry for Everton is if they go down, they're building a new stadium.
Oh, you know, championship. I know.
You know, so, and they could be, you know, they could be playing their first game next season could possibly be Peterborough United at home, or Barnsley, or Bolton, or not Sheffield Wednesday, because
Everton have got Wolves away next.
Well, you see, that's the thing, Albert. What you come back to then, mate, that's a great point you raise, is that the difficulty of the fixtures remaining. Now, Leeds have West Ham and Tottenham. Everton have Wolves and Bournemouth. We have Arsenal and Palace. I think ours are the harder of the three clubs' games. You know, we're playing a title contender, and then we're playing a really talented, free-flowing side who will want to give old Roy Hodgson a party. You know, our games are really difficult. Now, I could see Everton going to Molineux and perhaps getting some, and I think I can definitely see them beating Bournemouth on the last day. Leeds, now West Ham might have this conference final as their priority and think, well, we'll rest a few, we'll give Declan a break, we'll give, you know, Paquetá a break against Leeds. And then I'm relying on Tottenham Hotspur at Ellen Road on the last day of the season. Now, can anybody, not even the Tottenham supporters can trust Tottenham. And they are soft.
I'll try and speak to Sava for you, but I don't know if that's going to make a difference.
Well, to be honest with you, Sava has radicalised me about Tottenham. That's what he said.
Sava's done enough. I think he needs to go back to Dubai again.
Yeah, I think he needs a holiday every other week just to get over Tottenham Hotspur. I mean, the thing is, you know, they might go there and it might be Harry's last game, and Harry might say, "Right, I'll give you a send off." But and while I'm saying that the Leeds crowd is phenomenal. I mean, we went there about 4 or 5 weeks ago, Albert, and the noise they make is astonishing. But again, that might work against them. You might, you know, the pressure's on Leeds, and Tottenham might think, oh, well, you know, all the worries over there, we're all right. It's just, I just think with Forest, it's clear cut what they've got to do. And I think as a group, as a collection of people, and they're such lovely lads, we all say that about our own club. I think our lads are genuinely free of ego. There was an issue with Shelby a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, but Shelby's a bit of a maverick. I'm sure he's quite fitted. He's quite fitted in. But Morgan Gibbs-White was interviewed last week on Soccer AM by Tubes, and he gave the impression. He said to Tubes, he said, if you spent a month or 2 months in the Forest dressing room, you'd think we were going for the Champions League rather than trying to avoid relegation. So our lads are a grand bunch. I honestly think, Albert, we're in the best position we've been in for over 2 decades, whether we stay up or whether we go down. If we go down, I don't think if we go down, we'll suffer as much, asset stripping as Leicester and Southampton. We'll lose 1 or 2 that'll be cherry picked, obviously. But I think we'll go down. And if we were to go down and we keep Steve, we'll be strong. I mean, obviously there'll be a hangover. It might take a month or 2 for it to settle.
We spoke before, and I do think I just look at the fixture, Dave. I've got to be honest. I've always thought Leeds would go down. There's one of my tips to go down at the start of the season. I think Leicester on free for all. I cannot see them winning a game of football in the next 3 months, let alone the next 2 games.
No.
So I think that win against Southampton, and I actually think you might pick up something against Palace.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Palace, I mean, there are some new facets added to these fixtures, Albert. One is that on Saturday tea time, there'll be no Gabriel Martinelli, who I think is fantastic.
Yeah,
there'll be no Saliba,
tackle, by the way. Sorry, I've got to say that.
Yeah, and Saliba will be missing, and I think Arsenal have really missed Saliba. I think he's probably been the breakout player for Arsenal this year. Yeah, Bukayo's played well, and other people have played well. Thomas Partey had a good start of the season, but William Saliba really made his mark early on, and I think him being out has not helped. Now, so those are factors. Wilf, I don't believe, is going to be fit for the game against Palace.
From what I hear, yes. Yeah.
So, although I do think I absolutely love Michael Elise and Eberechi Eze. I think they're wonderful footballers, good lads.
Like 2, 3.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the game at the weekend where they beat Bournemouth. And
what a goal!
Michael Elise drilled the ball across Selhurst Park, Albert, and
what a pass!
Eberechi,
unbelievable,
and he just killed it stone down. He then cut in, and it's almost like Eberechi. He went straight into a crowd of Bournemouth players.
Bang.
And smashed it in the top corner. And I'm like, blimey, how can you stop? There's such those two are such talents, honestly. They're wonderful footballers, those two. So there are a lot of dangers. Mind you, they came to Forest earlier in the season. All three of them. Wilf missed a penalty. Elise and Eze did nothing at the City Ground, and Forest deservedly beat Palace. But as I say, I'd rather I look at the pair of them as a very difficult fixture. Where I think Forest might have some joy at the weekend is Taiwo against either Kiwi or Gabriel.
Yeah. One he's scored some important goals.
Yeah, he scored 4. He scored 4 in a week. He scored 2 against Saints and 2 at the weekend. And he's such a lovely lad. He's really humble. He's really jolly and cheerful. And he's like really quite spoken. He's educated. He's been doing a degree course here in England. He's a lovely time. He's very devout, very Christian guy. And when you see him speaking, you think, he's such a lovely, gentle giant. But at Chelsea, he gave Thiago Silva and Badiashile a right going over. He did the same against the Southampton back line. He made Lewis Dunk really uncomfortable when we beat them 3-1. And he also at Anfield, and I think that was a bit of a turning point for not only for Forest but for him. He gave Virgil and especially Canate some real problems. Forest were kind of under the cosh, but knocking it long to Taiwo, and you could see Virgil and Ibrahim Canate going, "Oh God, you have him. No, I don't want him. You have him." You know what I mean? And Taiwo, he's ungainly. He's when he first came, he's a little bit baby giraffe, but he's really settled into Forest, and I think at the end at Stamford Bridge, they all came over to us in our corner. Taiwo, and you could see he was a bit embarrassed because he's so modest, but he's been fantastic. And I think he's indicative of a general settling down of Nottingham Forest. So like at the start of the season, as everybody knows, it was 30 signings, right? And so you've got these 30 strangers, basically, get them together, try and bring cohesion, try and bring team spirit. And it's happening. And Steve Cooper deserves untold credit for that. It was literally there's 30 blokes.
Dave, quickly about Steve Cooper, because I want to ask you about Arsenal, not just this season, but in what you've made of the whole talk about the failure or bottle job. But in terms of Steve Cooper, what did you make when you first appointed him? Actually, that's a good start. And then obviously what you've seen since he's been here.
Well, when we appointed him, I thought it was a good appointment because I like what he did at Swansea. He came up a little bit short at Swansea. I was a bit not quite happy. I'm not quite sure what happened at Swansea that he left. I couldn't understand them allowing him to go. But obviously they decided they wanted to go with Russell Martin, and I think actually Russell Martin will be good. I think Swansea will be a danger in the Championship to everybody next year.
Yeah, next season definitely.
They're a really good possession-based footballing team, Swansea. So, but Steve came in, and from the moment he came in, Albert, in my view, he created a good impression. His very first interview as a Forest manager showed that he had done his research. He'd read up on the history. He understood what the club meant as an entity in itself. He understood what the club meant to the city of Nottingham, and he understood the city of Nottingham itself. So I think he did his research. He kind of put over the idea that, right, this is for me, and I'm going in, I'm diving in deep in with both feet, and I'm going to be proper Nottingham and proper Nottingham Forest. Then what he did, the last game before he took over, we'd won 1 of the first 8. We had 1 point from possible 24.
Ooh,
and we went to Huddersfield, and we had Stephen Reid and Warren Joyce as our caretakers for that day. Forest won 2-0, played ever so well. Reedy and Joycey had 3 at the back to allow Jed Spence one side, Max Lowe the other, to bomb on as wing backs. And Forest has found a way of playing that, in the previous managers didn't seem to want to. I think he was a little bit suffocating. Forest looked like they were let off the leash. It looked like it was fun again to play for Forest. Steve Cooper then took over. His first game was Millwall at the City Ground. And what Steve did, you can imagine he had a conversation with Stephen Reid and Warren Joyce. He said, I like what you two lads did at Huddersfield. Stay with us. Be part of what we're doing. I like the way we played. Let's keep that going. Yeah. And that formed the blueprint for what we did for the rest of the championship season. We played with wing backs. If Lowy got injured, so dear old Jack Colback went out on the left. Played Jack's fantastic. Jack's so himself. He's a real proper good football pro. Is Jack Colback, and we got up. Then this season, I think when we started, we began by playing the kind of football that we played in the Championship.
Yeah.
And in the Premier League, when you play as open as Forest, when Forest were open in the Championship, they could get away with it, Albert, and they could kind of just romp all over teams. So you get into the Premier League. Your first game is away at Newcastle United, and Guimaraes and Joe Linton and Joe Willett went, "Hang on, lads, if you're going to leave gaps like you did in the Championship, we're going to exploit it." And I think 100%. what he did, Steve, he kind of persevered with this style until Leicester, when we got beat 4-0. Now at Leicester, Taiwo hit the post before Leicester scored. Now if that goes in, then that would have been a toxic king power. We might have got something. As it was, it didn't go in. Then Leicester took control. Maddison was magnificent. We lost 4-0. Steve's up against the wall. You kind of think he's going to go. And then what happened? He signed his contract. So we lost on the Monday night to Leicester. He signed his contract on the Friday, kind of out of the blue. We were like, wow, he said it. There's a bloke in my town who's a Forest fan. He runs a greengrocers. And I was doing shopping for my mum and dad. And he come running out this greengrocers going, hey, Cooper signed his contract. Like, don't be stupid. I thought they were going to sack him. No, they signed him. And the first game after that, Albert, we played. We played Villa at home on a Monday night. It was a dour 1-1. They were with Gerrard at the time, and they were having their issues. We were having our issues with Steve. It was 1-1. It wasn't pretty to look at, but we didn't get rolled over like we had done previous games. And since then, the kind of thing that Steve's been saying is that Forest are not playing the kind of football that Steve would ideally like to play. But there's a difference between what you would like to do and what you need to do. And Forest have become, apart from the 5-0 at Arsenal, where Arsenal were just sublime, the 4-0 at West Ham, where Declan just ran the game. He was far too good for us. By and large, Forest have been far harder to either break down or beat since then. So what I like about that is he could have quite easily, when at the start of the season, Albert, when things were Forest were far too amenable to the whims of far better teams than we played previously. Instead of like, no, my way or the highway, my way's best. He adapted, and he kind of went away from what he would like to do. He kind of thought, I'd like to do this, but actually, if I do that, it's going to be detrimental. I think I'm going to have to do this, even though I don't want to do it. So, for example, at Stamford Bridge last week, he played 5 at the back, if you like. So it was Serge, it was Joe Worrell, magnificent, Felipe, the holy man bun, Moussa Niakate of the long throw, and then Renan Loddy. So that back 5 with Kayla Navas behind. I'm not sure that's the way Steve wants to play. He wants to be more front foot than that, but against this much better opposition. And I would imagine it would be very similar on Saturday, knowing that Bukayo's coming and Gabriel Jesus is coming, and whether it's Eddie Nketiah or Reece Nelson or whoever, Steve will play with that more sort of, I hate using the word, but it will be slightly more conservative than he would like to. I think if we stay up, Albert, if not when, if I can't say when, if, I think what we would like to see, the fervent hope is that if we do manage to survive, that next season, the logical next step for Nottingham Forest is to be more, not necessarily proactive, but a little bit more assertive and say, hey, we're Nottingham Forest. we're like a punk band. We're going to throw everything at you and be a little bit more, a bit less risk averse, if you like.
Yeah. Dave,
That was the
quickly,
way
sorry,
this.
Dave, quickly, sorry. How was two players I want to ask about?
Yeah.
How was Danilo settled in, and how was Felipe at the back settled in?
Oh, Albert, everybody loves them. They are two wonderful lads. I mean, Felipe, I have a bit of a man crush on him. He's a truly beautiful human being.
He is a good looking lad. He is a good looking lad.
He's got the most. I sit kind of quite near to the front of the Trenton, so when the lads warm up, he comes over. Felipe does, so he warms up. He's a big unit. He's a big, powerful guy, and he can, as Philip Foden will attest in the Champions League last year, he has got a slightly mean streak. But he comes over to the front of the Trent. All the little poppets, all the little tricky trees are down the front, waving to him and all that, all the little girls and little boys and that. And he comes over and he goes, hello, and he waves to him, and he's got a lovely smile, and his beard's immaculately trimmed, and he's just an Adonis, right? But he has been one of our better signings of the 30. He's been magnificent. He reads the game well. He's strong in the air. He's got presence and personality, and he's as tough as old boots. I remember he came on, Albert, against Fulham at the Cottage. We lost 2-0 that day. Now, in that game, there was this bizarre incident where Willy Bolly and Scott McKenna both got injured with the same injury, a hamstring, at the exact same moment in the game. Right, so they had to go off those two. I've never seen it. It was almost like there was a sniper in the Putney end shooting Willy Bolly and shooting Scott McKenna in the back of the leg, right? The two poor lads. My mate says to me, Willy Bolly was chasing Andreas Pereira up the field. And Willy kind of clutched his hamstring, and I was like, oh no, Willy's gone. And Willy's done really well. Willy's done better than a lot of us thought he would do.
Okay.
And Willy, and my mate's going, oh, McKenna's done his hamstring. Goes, no, Willy Bolly's done his hamstring. And he went, no, McKenna's done his hamstring as well. So the two of them had to come on. Joe Worrell then had to come on. Felipe then was introduced. We'd seen nothing of him. Unless you watch a lot of Champions League, because I haven't got BT, I tend not to.
Yeah.
And he came on, and his first job was to mark and go up against Mitrovic. And he looked really good. And we were like, whoa, this guy.
It's a good test, mate.
Very good test. So Felipe has become a huge favourite. Danilo, now he's a kid from Sao Paulo who's come from, I believe, a very, very poor background. You know, he's come from poverty. I think he was one of those kids that played with a bundle of rags in the favela, you know, kicking a football about. And he came to Forest in January, and I would say he's in age-wise he's very young, but in football experience terms, he is quite experienced. He's
We was linked with him. Apparently.
Yeah. All the Arsenal people, they all ask about Danilo, right?
Yeah.
And he'd won I think he'd won the Brazilian league with Palmeiras. I think he might have won a couple of Libertadores with Palmeiras, like Scarpa, who was kind of the first one. And Scarpa's been injured, but Scarpa has been brilliant because he speaks brilliant English, and I think he's a bridge between the club and our 4 Brazilian boys. So the lads are feeling like they fit in. Danilo, we thought that Steve would take his time with him, and we wouldn't see him that much from when he joined the club. But in January, we went to Bournemouth. He was on the bench, and Ryan Yates had to come off. Ryan had a period where he wasn't very well. I don't know what was up with him. Just wasn't. I think it was an illness. It wasn't an injury. Ryan was suffering in a way. And, you know, Yates is all action. He gives you everything. And he had to come off, and Danilo came on. And we kind of thought, hang on, this lad's got a bit about it. Then he's kind of slightly up and down. He played against Leeds at the City Ground, and Steve took him off because it was all happening too quickly for him. He was on a yellow card, and he was a red one waiting to happen. So Steve fetched him off, and it proved to be the right thing because Forest beat Leeds at the City Ground, even though Leeds were the better team on the day.
Yeah.
And then he's come back into the side, and he scored 3 in the last. He had a relatively quiet game at Stamford Bridge, but then again, he did help set up the first goal because he laid the ball out to Lodi, for Lodi to put it in for Taiwo to beat Thiago Silva and Mendy in the air, right? But the 3 games previous to that, I thought he was outstanding. He scored a beautiful goal against Brighton where Taiwo held up, played him in. He beat, I think it might have been Levi Colwell outpacing, put it in the far corner. Lovely goal. Great celebration in front of the Trent end. Then he scored at Brentford. He put us in front of Brentford right on the stroke of half time. And then he scored
against Southampton, didn't he?
That goal against Southampton.
Great flick by Morgan Gibbs White. Fantastic.
Morgan, yeah. Morgan said, I mean, Brennan checked Coyote, Coyote gave the ball to Brennan. Brennan pulled it back. Morgan said at the time, he said, I was going to hit it. I was going to shoot. But one of the Southampton lads has sort of blocked off the possibility, and he just cushioned the ball with a sort of back heel.
Beautiful goal.
And Danilo stuck it there, and off we go again with this celebration. And he's given us something that we've kind of lacked. He breaks from midfield, and he gives us
very important.
He gets forward to he's great at getting forward to supporting Taiwo. I think he dovetails really nicely with Morgan and Brennan. Those two play like they're best mates.
Yeah,
we've got some of our lads knock about as best mates. Brennan, Morgan, Nico, Paul. He was playing well until he broke his jaw. Nico Williams, right? And Danilo has come in, and he's got charm to burn. He just looks a really, really lovely lad. I've taken him to my heart. He's I've been on some shows, and instead of it's where he says Dave Asprey and FFC there, I'll often put Dave Illo. I tell you what, he's only been in the club 4 months, Albert. He's got his own song.
Some players can do that, Dave. Some players can do that. They can come in.
Let me tell you, mate.
They need to give you a difference to your playing style on your side.
Yeah, he's become Felipe and Danilo, Albert. They've become folk heroes at the club and in Nottingham very quickly. I mean, Danilo, to the tune of "Goal" by Spandau Ballet, it's Danilo. Oh, always believe in your soul. And I swear to goodness, Albert, at Brentford, when he scored just before half time, everybody in the concourse at the G-Tech, all the lads in the toilet, in our toilet, I think all the girls in their toilet, we were all, to a man and a lass, singing the Danilo song, right? So obviously it was a bit of a deflation when we lost. But again, when he scored against Southampton, all around the City ground, you heard the Danilo song. So the pair of them have been terrific. What they've done as well, because they've been so good so quickly, they kind of hit the ground running, which a lot of our lads haven't. Taiwo, it took him time. Morgan, it took him time. Serge, it took him a little bit of time. Serge Aurier has been excellent. Renan Lodi was poor to start with, but then found his feet. Yeah, some of our lads have had to adjust, which is natural. Some of them are coming from different countries to England for the first time. It's a culture shock. The way they live their lives change. The way they play football changes. So it's not easy for these guys. People go, he's on big money. He's a professional. He should be brilliant straight away. These are human beings.
No, it doesn't.
It's a psychological job to get them right. But I think what's happening, and I'm hoping it's not too late in the season, is we are finally settling down. So Felipe has become a first name on the team sheet. Danilo. So I think our side at the weekend, there might be one change from what happened at Stamford Bridge. Now, Stamford Bridge, it was Navas in goal, who's been generally brilliant. A couple of moments here and there, and then it'll be Aurier, Joe Worrell, Felipe, sort of in the middle of a back three of centre halves. Musa Niakate, who's left-sided, he'll play on the left. Renan Lodi on the left. And then it was Oral Mangala, very quietly goes about his games. Good lad, Oral. Doesn't get as much limelight as the others, but he's become a good, solid little player. Ryan Yates.
You got Lodi, Gibbs White, Danilo, and one you.
Yeah, Danilo. And then it'll be Morgan and Taiwo. That was the 11 at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now, yeah.
With us being at home this week, Albert, and one of them, and it's going to be really hard to drop them because they all did a decent job at Stamford Bridge. One of them might be left out for Brennan to come back in because Brennan's pace is such an asset to us.
Yeah, you need to play to your strengths, mate. 100%.
Yeah, so I think he might go sort of 4-3-3 with Brennan in, Brennan, Morgan, and Taiwo up front, and then Oral, Ryan, and Danilo in the middle, and then. But who do you leave out the back? What is good is your team is picking up and doing better when your manager and your coach has got a selection headache, and I think Steve has got one of those this week. But I think, as I say, I wish, Albert, that this kind of coalescing of Forest to be something settled. I kind of wish it had happened at the end of February rather than at the end of April. It might
better late than it's a bit late, but yeah, you know
yeah, it is. Yeah, I do. I mean, the thing is, mate, the worry might be in a couple of weeks. I might thinking, oh, if only it happened a little bit earlier. You know, I mean, but they've really stuck at it, and you know what, mate, when we came up, if somebody and when we signed 30. So not only do you go from the Championship to the Premier League, which is an enormous leap in ability and requirement, 30 bodies, you know, get thrown at it, you know, and they've got to kind of mold them together. I mean, it's like
that's crazy. I've never seen anything like it.
When they stick people in the Big Brother house or in Love Island or whatever, people are falling out left, right, and centre. They're all strangers. It's kind of like Forest Island. Steve Cooper, right? They are. There's 30. Get them to be a cohesive unit, and I actually think Steve is close to getting it done now. You know what I mean? So, but if
fair play for sticking with him. Fair play for sticking.
Oh yeah, and I mean, to be honest, Albert, what's lovely is that the ownership, who when they run Olympiacos, are a little bit more trigger happy over there. I think they've been like 3, maybe 4 managers now. So I don't know. We've been through the one, but what the ownership did, it listened to the supporters. That night at Leicester City at the King Power, when we'd lost 4-0, it could have been a case that they were coming over to say, you know, to applaud an empty away section. We could have all gone home early. It was rammed. And when they came over, Stevie Cooper, to a man and a woman. And I think we kept him in his job. And that it was lovely to think that the ownership were going, blimey, that lot at the King Power, let us know what they think of the manager. And they abided by our wishes. And I think that was a really good thing in the sort of bringing us and the team and the ownership closer together than it might have been. But you know what, mate, at the start of the season, I mean, we had all these preview shows about the season, Albert, where, you know, where are Forest going to finish? One guy said 4th. I think he's been carted off in a, you know, the people in the white. I think the people in the white coats took him away, Albert. You know, and then there'll be people saying, "Oh, you know, 10th, 11th," and I was thinking, I was on Door's show. Ben will tell you, and I said 15th, but I really meant 17th by the skin of our teeth. And cool. Albert, that we are into this stage of the season, given where we came from, given the stuff at the start of the season, and it is still in our own hands. It's pretty remarkable, I think. I thought, I tell you what, Albert, I thought after the Leicester game back in October, and after the West Ham game, which I think was in actually the West Ham game was the week after we got a point out of City, so it kind of came as a bit of a shock. I thought, now we're gone. I thought we'd be adrift at the bottom, and we'd be like Norwich were last year, or Watford were, or you know, something like that. But the city of Nottingham and this club and this great fan base have found a way to give themselves a glimmer of hope. It's not, you know, it's not. I mean, if we win on Saturday, then we're safe. It's all to go for. I mean, the way the two teams are, there isn't, apart from some putting right the wrongs of Sunday, there isn't that much for Arsenal to go for. Their situation is pretty sorted. Forest have got a big pot of gold. If they can beat Arsenal, that's a statement by beating one of the 2 best teams in the country. And they can make themselves safe. So it's going to be raucous. And I think what my hope, Albert, is that we win on Saturday and say, wow, we beat Arsenal, because I think Arsenal are brilliant. I really do. Not as good as City yet, but they're going in the right direction. And then I'd really like to go to Crystal Palace and have like beach balls and all sorts, have a bit nice party at Palace, you know. Do I think that'll be the case? No, I think it'll go to the last day of the season, because I think Arsenal will.
I think it will, but I think you'll be in a better position than some of the other clubs that are below you, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just, as I say, I'd like to think, I mean, this weekend, we all do that thing. Oh, we don't worry. It's what we do. We don't worry about other clubs. I'm not that mentally strong, Albert. I'm like Everton are going to Molineux, Leeds are going to the London Stadium. Oh, blimey, you know, Leicester are going to St James's. And I'm such a whittler and a worrier, Albert, that I'm looking at everything around it. You know what I mean? So,
just one more thing though. Go on, sorry. One more thing.
Go
sorry, wrap. I want to ask you about Arsenal. Because I'm sure I like to get on people's opinions that don't support the club. Well, preferably not Man United fans or Liverpool fans. That's another subject. But yeah, what have you made of sort of what you made of the sort of the recent weeks? Arsenal season, obviously, to talk about failure and bottle job. What have you made of Arsenal season as a whole and sort of the tag of failure or massive progression? How do you see it with Arsenal?
I think my context, Albert, is the whole season.
Yeah.
And actually before the season started, if you'd have asked me, I don't know, August the 1st or whenever it was, just before the season started, and somebody said, right, who do you think will be fighting out the title? I would have said Manchester City, and I would have said Liverpool.
Yeah, same here.
They were my two. They were my two, definitely. I didn't know how United would go with Ten Hag. I didn't know what was going to go on with Chelsea, although I think they should have stuck with Tuchel. Thomas Tuchel was crazy. Should have stayed with Tottenham, not good enough.
No.
Who else? Newcastle, I kind of had a sneaky feeling that Eddie Howe is such a good manager with Jason Tindall helping him, and Newcastle have got this financial firepower, and I thought Newcastle could be a springer. But I thought it'd be Liverpool and City. Not for 1 minute. If somebody said to me, do you think Arsenal would challenge for the title? No. I can't see that. I can't see that at all. I did watch the documentary and I loved it. And I think it portrayed Arsenal in a really good way. It showed Mikel Arteta as a good guy, thoughtful, intelligent, a cosmopolitan guy, if you like. And I liked the atmosphere that he was generating. You know, obviously he seemed to come in with some like really interesting things to say in team talks.
Very interesting.
And obviously he had some very interesting things to say when Forest knocked them out the cup at the City ground. Like FFFFF, slammed the door out. But then obviously I remember after that game he went back into the Arsenal meeting room, I think on the Tuesday after we won on the Sunday. And he said, look, he said, I know I said some things to you at the City ground, but I really do love you, lads. And there's no other team no other gang of people I'd rather be with. And I thought he got it right. And I thought they would be an improvement on what they've done for the last few years, but I didn't think they'd be this good. I certainly didn't think they'd be pushing City as far as they have done. And I actually think what he's done to people like myself who don't support Arsenal, he's made Arsenal more likable. I've liked Arsenal. Now, Arsenal teams of recent years, Albert, have been, you know, when it was Wenger and then Emery and then, you know, last season it was kind of like, I mean, what he's done for Granit Xhaka, right? I mean, 3-4 years ago, everybody at Arsenal wanted Granit Xhaka's head on a silver platter. Now he's kind of, you know, and now he's kind of part of the fabric, and he's become you know, he's kind of like a butterfly from a chrysalis. Granit Xhaka to be better. I think they've overachieved. I really do. They've done far better than I had anticipated. I think to say that Arsenal have bottled it is to utterly disrespect the power and the excellence of Manchester City. Right? It's saying almost, City are only going to win it because Arsenal were really poor and gave it to them. I think with Arsenal, they never had the depth of squad that City have got. We talked earlier about interchangeable pieces, Albert. People who could come in and come out of the squad. Arsenal have had a really, really good and excellent starting 11, I think. You know, Bukayo, Jesus, Martinelli, Partey, Odegaard, who I think has been excellent. You know, and then the lads at the back. But when you lose Saliba, that takes them out. They lost Gabriel Jesus for a while, and that took something away. Although Eddie did all right, you know, not spectacular.
Yeah, he filled in well.
Yeah. And I've had pelters for it, because what you get this kind of in my view, you get this tribal view of like football, like, and you're like, I'm Tottenham, so I hate Arsenal, so Arsenal bottled it. I'm Manchester United, so I hate Arsenal, so Arsenal bottled it. You know, and I'm like, no. If I was a Tottenham fan now, Albert, and I'm being a bit self-righteous, a bit holier than that, I would say, no, hang on. Just because I'm Tottenham doesn't mean to say I have to like decry Arsenal. I'd say Arsenal have done really, really well. You know, they've overachieved, and I think Arsenal. The only thing for Arsenal, again, it's a bit like Saturday could go one of two ways with Arsenal's mindset after Brighton.
Yeah.
Next season could go one of two ways. Either Arsenal say, right, we had a great season, we got close, we had a good look at, we know where the summit is, we got so far up the mountain, we could see where the summit is. You know, let's say add Declan and let's say add another couple, and we know now what we need. Yeah, what we know now, what we need to do to just bridge that gap to be even closer to City. I think City are going to be pretty, you know, dominant again.
Yeah.
So it's what Arsenal do now to address the failings they've shown. You know, I mean, the thing is, some of these Arsenal games have been real moments in the season. The Bournemouth game, I thought when they beat Bournemouth in the way they did, when Reece Nelson scored that winner, I kind of,
we thought that might have been a pivotal moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, wow, Arsenal are going to go overachieve even more. But then you get to the West Ham game, which all the Arsenal guys I know, such knowledgeable guys, said the West Ham game was such a, you know, to be 2-0 up and then to have it taken away from you by a side that is, no disrespect to West Ham, in a poor position in the league. That must have hurt. I think the Southampton game was the one, because it was like,
I was there. I was there for that, mate. Oh my God.
You know, I mean, I think losing to Brighton and Hove Albion isn't such a disgrace. Brighton and Hove Albion are fantastic, pound for pound, the best run club in the country, in my view. You know, Tony Bloom's a brilliant owner.
I mean, Dave, for example, they beat us last season at the Emirates. I was there for that. They beat us in the Carabao Cup earlier in the season, and they beat us again at home.
Yeah, so that's 3 Brighton wins at the Emirates, that's no mean feat at all.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the Brighton one, I think, was just a sort of a full stop on the end of the sentence. But the Southampton game, I mean, it was brilliant that was a kind of like a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. It was a good thing because they got a point out of it when they were 3-1 down. But then they get back to 3-3 and there was all that injury time. It was an unbelievable game. I think that's the game of the season, that. So you got a title contender against the side first relegated, and it's the best game of the season.
I think my voice is still recovering from that game. I was in club level, mate. My club level experience was ruined.
That night, Albert, I was on a show that night with somebody. Oh, I can't remember who it was now. It was on a Friday night.
It might have been on Sav's show, because I couldn't make that. I was at the Southampton.
Yeah, it might have been. And I remember doing a show, and I only kind of, who was it? I don't know whose show it was. Anyway, whoever show it was we were on, he said, "Oh, Southampton are winning." And being a Forest fan, I'm like, "Oh no," because Southampton was still in it at that point.
Yeah.
Then it goes 2-0, and then I'm like, I was actually rooting for Arsenal. I wanted Arsenal to win to kind of push Southampton further away from us, you know.
Yeah.
But the sense I got at the end of that game was that Arsenal were, we got something, when it didn't look like we were getting something. But then having got that something, they all look like, but it isn't 3, is it? It was
because we knew we had Man City next. That's the issue.
Yeah. And I think, Albert, the best game of the season, you know, pound for pound, the best single match of the season, did nothing for either of those teams. So Saints have gone now, and Arsenal have fallen short.
Yeah.
And
Dave, you know what's crazy, man?
And it's hindsight, Albert, you know.
Dave, you know what's crazy? I mean, I didn't know this at the time, that if Arsenal won their last 3 games of the season, obviously the game gets Brighton, and if we was to beat you, for example, in the last game of the season, they would have equaled the same points tally as the Invincibles. Crazy, and it still wouldn't have been enough.
I know, and I mean, the thing is, in a way, the game and the Premier League, it seems to be, it doesn't seem to evolve, Albert, in small incremental amounts. It seems to evolve in like giant leaps.
Yeah.
So if you think back to those kind of great duels of 2 or 3 seasons ago between Liverpool and Manchester City, there was one season where Liverpool racked up, I don't know, 98 points or 99, and City got 101.
97.
101, you know, and it's like, to win leagues now, you're having to kind of go further and further along the road, you know. I mean, the Invincibles, I mean, for them to even be mentioned in the same breath as the Invincibles, I think for this 22-23 squad to be mentioned, even within a million miles of the Invincibles, says that how much better this Arsenal squad is, this Arsenal team is, than it's been for the last 4, 5, 6 years. You know, if I said to you, Albert, August, the end of this season, Albert, Arsenal will be a Champions League team, which they're going to be. You'd have been happy with that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I went for Arsenal to get fourth and finish ahead of Spurs. That's what I said. The thing is, that was the aim, but obviously he's killed two birds with one stone. Not just getting Champions League, but actually coming runners up and going for a title. But the thing is, Dave, you can't please Arsenal fans. Jenny will know in the chat, and the Arsenal fans that are there. That You got certain quarters. It's a failure, and that's within the own fan base. By the way, that's not even rival fans. You've got some talking about progressive. I said to people, it's not a successful season; it's a very progressive season. But it shouldn't be looked at as a negative. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Albert, that's a brilliant, far better way of summing it up than me. I mean, I've gone all around the Rican saying all these things, and you just bump. And I think it is a progressive season. It's progress.
Very progressive, yeah.
The clue is in the description. And I think, I mean, I went to the Emirates in November, and we were actually playing really well at the time. We were in a good run. We'd beaten Liverpool. We'd had a draw at Brighton, and we'd beaten Liverpool the previous week.
Yeah.
And then you kind of think, right, we just beaten Liverpool of all people. And we were deserving winners against Liverpool. We bullied them off the park that day at City, even though we only won one. And then you go to the Emirates, and we were a goal down in 2 minutes. Yeah. And then it was a case of I was looking through my fingers, I was thinking, my God, how many are Arsenal going to score? Reece Nelson came on. I think he's scored off his bum with the first Yeah. You know, so. And I was like, I remember coming away from the Emirates. We were on the motorway coming out, got stuck in a bit of traffic. My old man rang up. My old man's he's a proper football man, my dad. He was a scout for Forest back in the day. And he rang me, he goes, have you had a good day? And I said, well, we've lost 5-0 to Arsenal. But have you had a good day? And I went, well, the Emirates Stadium's fantastic. I said, the atmosphere was great. I said, didn't really care for the vegan pasty. Won't be having that again, because it was more of an offensive weapon than a pie. I tell you, if I'd have thrown the vegan pasty, Albert, I'd have smashed the wall with it or something. You know. And he goes, "What were Arsenal like?" I said, "Whoa, way too good for Forest." I said, "It was an object lesson to Nottingham Forest. That, right, you want to stay in the Premier League? This is the kind of stuff you're going to be up against most weeks." And Arsenal were just brilliant. The only thing we did do that day. And we had international games coming up was Renan Lodi did Bukayo, so Bukayo had to go off, and we were all kind of going, "Ooh, what we done for England?" Do you know what I mean? So, but Arsenal, Thomas Partey scored an amazing goal that day, and they were just far too good for us. And I kind of thought, "Well, this Arsenal side look younger, slicker, sharper," and I think they've done. Again, yeah, you're right. It's progressive. It's better than it was last season, but I don't think I don't like this idea of bottle jobs. I think if Manchester City have been a long way in front with their undoubted superiority of talent, and you know, kind of concocted ridiculous ways to lose games, you know, through penalties, through stuff, then maybe hang on these. But I just think Arsenal got to the end of what they were capable of, and there was no more left in the tank.
Yeah, good analogy.
And when the dust settles for Arteta and I guess Edu and all the other people behind the scenes, then they'll have a good look at it and they'll say, right, we need to. I believe Xhaka's on his way out the club. I think he's going.
Yes.
So I mean, if I was Arsenal, I'd go and I'd get the red carpet and get Declan in. I think Declan would be perfect for Arsenal. And I think he'd enjoy playing at Arsenal.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
There'll be plenty to talk about over the summer, mate. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, I mean, James Maddison will be looking for a home. You know, although having said that, I don't think James Maddison has covered himself in glory these last 2 or 3 weeks. I think with Leicester, they've become a little bit pompous. Well, we shouldn't be in this place. Deal with it.
Yeah,
and like
Jamie Vardy's going to like that. You're going to be you're going into one place.
If James Maddison and Yuri Tielemans are putting themselves in the shop window for prospective buyers and wanting to go in, and they will think, I want to go to a Big Six club. They're not exactly covering themselves in glory. They're not advertising their claims at the moment, you know. So I just think if Arsenal are shrewd, I think they need a really good centre half. Goalkeeper's fine. There's some good lads in midfield. Add Declan to that with his Declan's a big unit and he's a personality. I think Declan would be ideal for Arsenal. But obviously, I think, United will look at him. Maybe City will look at him. Can you imagine if they added Declan to
Arsenal,
City?
If you're listening, this is my, obviously, we'll see what happens, but bring me in Kyle Walker-Peters, Caicedo, Declan Rice. And actually, I mentioned it last season, actually, Dave, at the start of last season. Go and get me Tammy Abrahams. He's the type of striker need his physicality, height, played in the Premier League. I'm not sure if Arsenal did. I think Victor Osimhen, he's out of anybody's. He won a league at Napoli. They're a very difficult club to negotiate with. Tammy Abrahams, I'll bring him to Arsenal tomorrow. If that's just me personally.
Do you know, Albert, that makes me laugh because we've been talking about Tammy Abraham as well. Oh, he'd suit Forest, and I think he would actually. Yeah, I mean, it's like when we beat Southampton. Once we kind of got over that, about a couple of days later, all the Forest people, all the Forest family were going, "Oh, wouldn't James Ward-Prowse look lovely in a Garibaldi red shirt?" So, James Ward-Prowse, I think, would do a really good job for an Arsenal or a Villa or a Brighton or somebody like that. He's such a good player. And what you get with James Ward-Prowse is you guarantee penalties being scored and any dead ball situations around the box. I mean, the guy's the best in the world. Kyle Walker-Peters, sorry, easy for me to say. I think he'd be a good shout.
He'd be a good shout. He's wanted by quite a few clubs. Actually, I didn't realise.
Yeah. He's a good lad. Him. I do think that Saints will get raided. I think Saints might find it harder to come back. I think if the three to go are Forest, Southampton, and Leicester, I think Forest would start off next season in a better position than either Leicester or Southampton, because I think
Dave, you're spot on, mate. Listen, we're both old enough. Me and Dave are 21 plus VAT people, but listen, look at the likes of the Coventries and the Sheffield Wednesdays and the Norwich Cities. Listen, it takes a long time to come back. It does.
Yeah, we had it. I mean, when Brian finished, we were kind of a little bit up and down, and then from 1999 we went down, and then it was like 22, 23 years before we came back, and it's hard. Yeah, once you get into that mire in the Championship. So Norwich have found it difficult this year. Watford have but Watford are kind of a revolving door. I mean, I can't understand what's going on there. Ridiculous club Watford is. Yeah, I know it's not a ridiculous football club. It's got a history and everything. Whoever's running it shouldn't be allowed near it, really. And I just think, I mean, you mentioned like Sheffield Wednesday went through it, Leeds went through it, Wolves went through it, Leicester went through it, Derby are going through it.
Yeah,
Southampton went through it, Forest went through it, Manchester City a couple of decades back, they went, and it's very difficult to come back. What Burnley have done is actually not the norm. It's the exception to the rule. Blades have kind of gone down. They've had a couple of seasons, and Blades are coming back. So, but I think if it is us to go down, and it's likely it's going to be Leicester and Southampton, I think we'd almost be the opposite of what we were at the start of the season. We'd have the nucleus of a side already in place, and it'd be tweaks rather than overhaul. But I think Southampton are going to lose Walker-Peters. They're going to lose James Ward-Prowse. Leicester are going to lose Tielemans and Maddison.
Yep.
They may lose some others. I don't know, but really, Iheanacho, somebody might take him.
Yeah.
So I think Leicester are looking at Leicester and Southampton. I think would become completely different Leicesters and Southamptons from what they are now. I don't think Nottingham Forest would be. They'd be subtly different, but they wouldn't be radically different from what they are now. So, but obviously, if we stay up, then. I have a grin as wide as the River Trent, Albert. But what I won't do, mate, is I won't. Two very difficult games.
We'll have that conversation at the end of the season, mate.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, mate, when they say, "Are you staying up?" I really hate saying it, because what I don't want to do, I don't want to come on here and say, "Yeah, we're staying up, Albert. We're Nottingham Forest. We'll be all right." And then in 2 weeks' time, Albert will go, "That doesn't look so clever now, does it, Dave?" You know what I mean? So I don't want to do that, mate. I'd rather keep my cards close to my chest and say, what will be, will be. But if we do go down, then I'll just say it's one of those things. I mean, I'm 59. I'm philosophical at my age, Albert. If we go down, I'll just say, somebody said to me, what will happen if Nottingham Forest go down? I said, well, I bought my season ticket for next season. I'll go to all the games and I will continue to love my club because it's such an important part of my life. It's the thread running through my life. You know, I mean, with my own sort of personal situation at the moment, there are some responsibilities and stresses. And Nottingham Forest is an unbelievable outlet, as I guess, you know, Arsenal are for you and all the people watching and all this kind of stuff. And I think, you know, the great journalist Hugh McIlvanney, the greatest sports writer of all, he said that football's the greatest irrelevance on the planet. He was right, because when, you know, people are losing their lives and we're ill and all that, football is really irrelevant. But boy, it's got a lot of meaning to it. You know what I'm saying? So no, it won't affect me. It'll be a blow, and I'll be sad. I'll be sad for the lads who've tried hard, and I'll be sad for Steve Cooper if we go down. And you know, there'll be some recriminations, there'll be anger and all that kind of stuff. You know, and people feel how they want to feel. But for me, I'll be like, right, when's the next Forest football match? Whether it's Rotherham United or whether it's Arsenal or whoever, it's about. I just want to go to every Forest game for the rest of my life. Even if we're in the Nottinghamshire Senior League playing Clipston Miners Welfare or Ruddington or somebody like one of those teams, I'm still Forest. You know, I mean, so we'll see what goes on, mate. But it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be nervy, and it's going to keep me on my toes, mate. You know.
Well said, mate. Listen, people, we're an hour and 31 minutes here. I knew I had Dave once. I thought I'd give myself a bit of time. But it's been Dave. Listen, it's been great to get you on, man.
My pleasure,
a few Forest fans came in the chat as well to support you, mate. Fair play.
Yeah, Kel was on there, and
that's it. So when people smash the like button if you haven't already, subscribe to Albert J TV and follow my amazing Forest man on his Twitter handle, which I've put in the title. So make sure you go and follow people. Dave,
because the thing is, I haven't got a channel, Albert, as you know, have I?
I know.
I'm a maverick. I'm like an outlier, kind of beamed in. I don't even do. I mean, I'm a fraud. I don't even do my own channel, really. You know what I mean? I'm basically bucking the system. But Albert, what you do, and all these other boys like Potsy and Sava, and everybody who's doing this for every club. I remember a time where there was none of this, and fans never got to have their say in these forums and media and all this kind of stuff. And I think, you know, I've met Newcastle guys this year, Leicester guys, Leeds guys, the amazing Joe Wayman. Everybody should watch Joe Wayman at Leeds. He's wonderful. Albert, Sava, Potsy. Been very fortunate to meet these guys. And what all these guys do for their clubs, I think, as a guy who remembers like times when there was none of this and nobody got their say, I think it's absolutely wonderful, you know. And what I like is the generally the fantastic level of respect that everybody's got. I think it's absolutely brilliant, mate. So it's been a real pleasure, Albert. Thank you so much, mate.
It has, man. This will get on audio, people. So if you're at work, you're driving, or you're doing the washing up, you could hear me and Dave's dulcet tones.
Albert, this is our first album that we've released together, mate. Let's hope we go to the top of the charts, mate. Albert and Asprey. It sounds good. Yeah. Like a rap duo, mate. You know what I mean?
But I will definitely promote this on the socials, and like I said, you'll hear me and Dave's dulcet tones on the audio. But people,
bless you, mate.
People in the chat box, get your virtual waves and hugs and goodbye, because me and Dave are departing to go and watch some football that's on TV tonight, I think, as well. But
love to all the Arsenal massive. Yeah. Hope you don't win on Saturday. I'm sorry, I've got to say that.
Come on, you guys, people. This is Albert J TV. Over and out. Take care, people.